So now I would like to introduce the next panelist because she's already here with us. It's Christina Wildgrube. Christina Wildgrube studied at the Academy of Fine Arts Leipzig, specialized on book arts and graphics. And she concentrated on combining typographical material with the idea of composing visual artwork. When she visited us at the Klingspor Museum in Offenbach, I guess 2 years ago, we were fascinated by her suite of prints that showed her special feeling for the wide spectrum of the printed matter. At her talk at the last APM conference, it was Susanne Richter from the Museum of Printing Arts in Leipzig who hinted already at Christina Wildgrube and her artwork. Now we are even more satisfied to have the artist herself introducing us to her field and her understanding of the usage of printing materials in an artistic way. Christina Wildgrube will give us the opportunity to answer some questions as well after her talk. So please write your comments or questions in the chat or use the Q&A function as you already know. So I will hand over to Christina Wildgrube. Welcome to our conference.
Hello, and welcome to images from the Typecase. Pulling the Typecase out of the shelf, with my eyes lowered on the closely arranged ornaments and decorative elements made of lead or brass, a world full of images, rich in landscapes, opened up to me. Rich in jewelry consisting of many individual parts, delicate and filigree, following my inner images, I started to give them impression. My discovery was quickly put into practice. I sat, combined and tried out. The more I used the lead, even touched it, eventually cleaned it, the more its grey, dull surface began to shine and had an effect on me. It gave me the impression of being not just a functional printing form, but a form that exists for its own sake. During the creative process, I developed a sympathy for the old and wondered which foundry the individual letters or parts came from, who commissioned them, where they were used, and who used them for the last time. I found a large numbers of these ornaments listed in the catalogue of the Schriftgießerei- und Messinglinienfabrik D. Stempel AG around 1914, where they were also illustrated with individual examples of use. Another part I discovered in the type specimen booklets of the VEB Typo Art. These two sources, among many others, show the historical importance of this material and its design used in the typographic context. Working with the lead felt to me like a journey through time. The very specific characteristic of this material very much shifted my general sense of time in order to achieve a successful print. Shifted, raptured, with several thousand individual parts that wanted to be put together. My motto could hardly be anything other than deceleration. In my work, a central role is played by the place, the combination of workshop and my ability in being able to react to the existing print material, which is only available there to a limited extent. What I find, I put together. My own sketches, maps, and text served as models and inspiration. I found such a place in the hand composition workshop of the Academy of Visual Arts Leipzig, and felt immediately inspired by its quiet and clear working atmosphere. Here, I created my first pictures from the typecase, which tickled my desire for larger ones. Letters and punctuation marks were excluded for use, because in doing so I would feel the need to ascribe a legible meaning to the letters. In preparation, I started by arranging ornaments to their shapes, sizes, and how intense each ornament appears in the print. A dot is much less black on the same area than a square, for example. Depending on the size of the image, I either compose it directly on the gallery or straight onto the press. Sometimes I started from the top, from the left or right, instead of building up a form from the bottom up as usual. That's why I didn't use the classic tool like a composition stick. Some images are created in a day, while others grew over a year and changed permanently. This composition took me over a year. Here I was challenged not only by my own expectations, but above all by the technical processes, such as the appropriate arrangement of the ornaments, the size of the composition, 35 by 53 centimeters, the even application of the ink, the choice of the color, and the appropriate paper and the printing in this form. Although all the pieces should have the same height of 2.357 centimeters, the actual height was different, so I had to replace many of them. The multiplicity of forms, the delicacy of the heavy material, and the change of printed areas to unprinted areas of paper are characteristic of my landscapes. For me, composing landscape means abstracting, and it is a process of slow decisions and perfecting. Only when a piece of land opens up to me and becomes visible are the invisible letters in the individual letters in their position. Depending on the viewing direction and the distance from the image, it shows itself its individual elements. Then again, it flickers and pulls the individual shape into a surface, a fabric, a texture, almost a painting is created. The lead behaves like pixels in a picture, only that in my case it is not a digital work that is created, but one whose essence and destiny is its order to be assembled from individual parts and to be dissolved again into its components and returned to its source, the hardest way for me. In contrast to the usual practice in printing, I am less interested in creating additions. My focus is in understanding the characteristics of the material or the machine and using them in a way it is coherent. Over a period of 3 years, I have created a wide variety of works. Here you see the image number 9 from the set Landsätzen. It is created with material from the Academy of Fine Arts in Leipzig. And here you see the image number 11 that is actually built or composed with a material from a really little printing workshop in Lutherstadt-Wittenberg. In these examples, I worked only with a color blue. Actually, it's a really dark blue. But in the next step I made, I worked with linotype material. I also worked with different colors. Here you see linotype lines that Thomas Simon produced for me for the Let's Print workshop in Leipzig, and I had the opportunity to play and to work with those lines, and so I made my next step from one color to even more colors. Also I combined different blue and white tones with each other. Here you see an exhibition view from the results of the Let's Print workshop in Leipzig. Really inspired and fascinated by these lines, I continued working with this kind of material and started to continue to work on these horizons, on these water images, and played with the material here even more. The difference between my first examples and those prints is that here I used a printing machine, that a kind of proof machine, so I could got a kind of extra support from the printing press, and I didn't have to do everything on my own like I did in the first prints. So this is probably my newest work, or my newest way of working. Here I started to combine my images that are inspired by a text, and I try to find a nice composition on the paper that combined my aesthetic view of the image also with the text. And actually here, this is a poem from Ingeborg Bachmann that I think it's really worth to read it out aloud now in German. Nach dieser Sintflut. Nach dieser Sintflut möchte ich die Taube und nichts als die Taube noch einmal gerettet sehen. Ich ginge ja unter in diesem Meer. Flög sie nicht aus, brächte sie nicht in letzter Stunde das Blatt. I need the place, the workshop, not only to work. I need the atmosphere that makes it up. Its ceilings, alleys, tools, silence, excitement, and the view out of the window. Its smell and the idea of it, what all happened here in the decades before. I need the materials that are only available there in order to be able to create from and with these limitations. All this flows into my work and is part of it. That's why I would like to thank the Academy of Visual Arts, the Museum for Druckkunst Leipzig und die Grafikwerkstatt in Dresden in particular. These are all places where I found the opportunity, peace and concentration and freedom for professional exchange to continue and deepen my work. And composition no longer has any economic relevance. As an intangible cultural heritage, it has been freed from these constraints. Perhaps that is why it interests me even more, because this invention no longer has to assert itself economically and generate monetary returns. It is no longer in competition with more modern technologies of printing and text reproduction. It only stands for itself, which makes me incredibly relaxed in what I do and leaves me room for improvisation and repetition in the here and now. Thank you for listening.
I wanted to say how wonderful it was to have the idea to have you with us. Thank you very much for following this idea, and it was a so fascinating sphere of printing you brought to us. And looking at the chat, I just can read out beautiful, surprising, thank you so much, and so on and so on. So really a big shot you did. Thank you so much indeed. What I want to say is that for any art historian, it is a most important chapter to learn about the phenomenon of landscape, and to learn that the word landscape and the whole idea of landscape is not made by nature, but made by human. So we have to go into the nature and sort of find out what is landscape. And people in the 17th, 18th century did it a very special way. They found it what they called the Lorraine mirror. It was a little instrument with a gaze on it, and they hold it into in front of them and looked through this kind of mirror, and what they found behind, they called the landscape. You see, it needed a very special perspective and a special aspect to form the idea of landscape. And that is something which goes through all of art history, all the paintings, all the prints, or whatever we have of landscape is a special impression of nature, and is sort of distilled and laid out by the specific view of the very artist. And it's wonderful to see how this idea goes on, and that you are a brilliant contributor to this idea, and give a brand new way of making an impression of nature in your kind of landscape. And it's certainly that we could start to think about all kinds of associations that come to our idea when we look at your landscapes. And it's perfect and wonderful that you use such a sort of functional material like typographical lines and others to give them a completely new meaning. And this is really something one has to reflect further on. And so I'm very inspired by what you said and what you do, and it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Stefan already said we had a lots of comments in our chat about the beauty and spherical quality of your prints, so that was really inspiring. And I personally like the idea of printing as some kind of new freedom, maybe in a creative sense. And now I see we also have some more questions in our chat room. Sarah Bankers asks, what is the biggest difficulty you face in making your creations, and how long does it take you?
That's a big question. I think the material surprises me a lot. And as I work with this linotype lines, I have a certain amount of material that I know, and I can trust the material to to go with. But with the individual single letters or ornaments, it's quite more difficult because most of the time I don't know at the beginning how many of them are available. So I actually, it's like diving and you have to find out. I mean, it's also that I feel, as my impression, like workshops or even also the school in Leipzig, they have a catalog and you can check what kind of material is available, and you also find the place where it is. So such institutions or workshops are getting more and more organized to give access to this material, but even then you have to you have to get an overview of what is there, and then you have to find out how fits it together. And sometimes by making, you find a solution for an image that surprises you, because the material tells you what it wants, and I translate it then. Or sometimes I have a really clear idea in mind that with this kind of lines, to build that image. I think it really needs a lot of experience, and I think after 3 years, I have that now a bit more. But I mean the nice thing about it is the material surprises me, and I think that's also maybe my character, or that's what I like. Yeah.
And can you tell us a bit more about your color choices? Are they inspired by observation?
Research. After a research of finding the right tone, I ended up going with blue. So with my first prints, of course, as it's graphic prints, I decided to go with black. But then the black was so heavy to me on the paper that I decided this is not, it just felt so strong that I decided I need something that is not that strong. And then I found that really, almost black, dark blue, that just made all the difference. Yeah, but in the newer, my newest work, there I also go with different blue tones. Yeah, even I combine a little bit of red or yellow in it. So I try to build a bigger spectrum out of this blue. That it's not just the blues, and then even more.
Thank you. Jeff, Tom wants to know, or is curious about the technique used to obtain the varying inking on the linotype metal. Was this done in the make ready, or was the weight of the line varied? And he's also telling you, thank you for sharing this beautiful work.
It's quite difficult and also not so easy to explain it here, because some things you have to experience. But as I can say is that when I start building form, and by putting the color on the form, there I put different colors on the form in one move. And after the color sits on the lines, I juxtapose the lines in a new order. And this is how I can influence where I want to have which color. This is it in short. I think this is it, yeah. But it also means you can just do one print at a time, and then you have to clean up all the material and you have to start over again.
I have another quite specific question. We will see if it's possible to answer it right now. If not, we can also discuss it or write an email later on. Rosita Nenno wants to know, do you see parallels to the work of Jochen Gerz, especially for the colors?
So I will think about it from now on. I don't know.
Okay, the question we are all asking ourselves, where can your works be procured?
So in the future, I'm really hoping to have a little archive with all my work, and then to make it available for printing fans, of course. That's the thing. And I don't have a shop. I don't have a gallery or something. So in case you have an interest, then you can either email me, of course, and I can send you a little PDF with a collection, or we can meet in case this is possible then in the future. And yeah, sometimes it really needs the pure view on the print instead of seeing it on the screen. It's something else.
So Stefan, you just wanted to say something? Is it still?
I just wanted to try to answer the question concerning the work of Franz Gertsch, who's a very well-known artist printer some decades ago. And as far as I know, he was well known for his sujets of two people, I think, are very close to each other. Anyway, he would have used photographs and then transferred the photographs into woodcut. And that seems to me quite different to what the work of Christina is, which is a sort of inventing the landscape out of the material itself, and not trying to reproduce a sort of fixed picture by the typographic material. So the process is just the other way around.
I might have a question. You don't use words in your prints, but I have the impression that words, language are nevertheless an inspiration for you. We talked about this this morning a bit. Are you actually inspired also by words?
Yeah, of course. I'm in love with some words. But working with text means also making mistakes. And I think it just drives me crazy sometimes. And also there's a meaning behind, maybe I have also so high expectations that I just was so way more relaxing working with dots and squares and ornaments and with little ornament family. But I think it's quite interesting to me also to work with poems like I did with Ingeborg Bachmann. And because in the past I thought, I'm not gonna illustrate text because it just, I think I can't do that. I was really afraid of doing it, and also because I thought the image and the text, they always fight with each other. And so I think with the print of Ingeborg Bachmann's text, from my experience, I found an answer that gives room to the text, and they are belonging in a way together, and that gives me peace. So hopefully, I would like to continue working with text even more.
Okay, thank you very much, Christina Wildgrube, for this inspiring talk. I guess we are now all enchanted by the art you showed.